Welcome to Layer of the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, another in a series of what I call milestone moments. These are moments in a band's career where everything comes together, where they release their most respected album, and it usually features the most iconic lineup of the band. And the album can even be considered a genre-defining album. So the band that I've picked for today is Megadeth, and the album is their 1990 thrash metal masterpiece, Rust in Peace. This was Megadeth's fourth album. Dave Mustaine, who was originally in Metallica, gets unceremoniously dumped from the band right before Metallica releases their first record. He goes on to form Megadeth with a vengeance. And they released their first album in 1985, Killing Is My Business, and Business Is Good. 1986, they release Peace Sells, But Who's Buying, which had a pretty big song for them, the title track, Peace Sells, which got a lot of video play on MTV at the time. Then in 1988, they released up there, So Far, So Good, So What, which got them some more attention. They had a cover of the Sex Pistols song Anarchy in the UK, which again got some play on MTV. But for me, their milestone moment when everything comes together for them is on the 1990 album Rust in Peace. This album to me is one of the greatest thrash metal albums of all time. And if you wanted to make the argument that it is the best thrash metal album of all time, I probably wouldn't argue too much with you. I could see someone saying that because this album is just absolutely amazing. On So Far, So Good, So What, Jeff Young played guitar and Chuck Baylor played drums. They left or were dumped, and in came what many would consider to be the iconic lineup of Megadeth, which was, of course, Dave Mustaine, vocals and guitar, David Ellefson on bass, and they brought in Marty Friedman on guitar and Nick Menza on drums. Marty Friedman had come from the world of shred guitar. You may have heard me talk about that in my history of guitar players where I listed Marty Friedman. He was on the Mike Varney label, had a group called Cacophony with Jason Becker. He had released some of his own records. So he was a very technical guitar player. And when they brought in Marty and Nick, it just elevated the musicianship of this band to the highest caliber, in my opinion. It's not hard to make a comparison, or it's understandable why Megadeth always gets compared to Metallica because of the connection between Dave Mustaine and Metallica and the history that those two bands share. And in my opinion, I already did a video on Master of Puppets where I believe that is Metallica's milestone album. And I think with And Justice for All, Metallica was attempting to go for a sort of progressive, more technical type of thrash metal record. And I believe that they succeeded to a certain degree, but I think that what Megadeth does on Rust in Peace is they succeeded 100% with that goal. Metallica just didn't have Marty Friedman in the band. Marty Friedman, amazing guitar player. Lars Ulrich is not Nick Menza. So that automatically took the rhythm section of the band to a whole new place. David Ellefson is amazing on this record. Dave Mustaine's songwriting. Dave writes most of the songs on this album, and his riff writing is just absolutely incredible. And the playing all over this record is amazing. The album was produced by Mustaine and Mike Klink, and it sounds fantastic. Max Norman, who is famous for working with Ozzy Osbourne, is the mixer on this record, and everything is in check. You can hear everything. It's super punchy. Everything is super clear. The bass, which usually gets lost on most extreme metal albums and thrash metal albums, is very audible and really adds a depth to this album that I think is just great. Dave Ellefson, although he is a well-respected bass player, I think he deserves even more praise, and especially on this record. He plays a big part in the sound on this record. The songs, every song on this record is great. It starts off with Holy Wars, The Punishment Due, and that for me is maybe the quintessential thrash metal song, maybe up there with Metallica's song Master of Puppets. Holy Wars is just absolutely incredible and one of my favorite metal songs of all time. It has just absolutely killer, super tight riff, down, 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 and oh my goodness, it is just as tight as an iron fist. It is absolutely incredible, and this is before the days of computers where you could quantize things and fix things. They played all this stuff, which makes it all the more incredible. The riffs in this song, Holy Wars, are just off the chart incredible. That main riff is one of my favorite metal riffs of all time. And when the song drops down into dun 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 dun, they're just of war, da 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 da, is just absolutely amazing, so crushing. And Dave's vocals on this are just totally on point when he does the whole first mistake, last mistake. That Dave Mustaine sneer and venom is just in full display on this whole album and especially on this song. It is just absolutely great. And it should be also praised, the lyric subject matter on this record. It touches on a lot of sort of typical thrash things like war, nuclear war, politics, but there's also some UFO conspiracy theory type things, government conspiracy theories, and you get that in the next song, Hangar 18. Holy Wars and Hangar 18 were the two videos that they released from this record. Hangar 18 probably got a little bit more video play than Holy Wars did, and Hangar 18 is about the whole UFO, Roswell, Hangar 18 thing, chock full of killer riffs, great chorus. All these songs on this record are catchy, so even though it has a progressive, very technical element to it, it's not in an over-the-top, distracting way. Everything makes sense. Everything serves the songs. The songs are super catchy. You hear them, you remember them. It's one killer riff after another. And there's enough variety between all the songs that, in my opinion, is what really makes this a 10 out of 10 classic album. I get really bored when I listen to a record that's just one thing through the whole record, whether it's burning speed on a thrash metal record or it's a super slow doom album. To me, what creates the give and go, the tension and the dynamic of a record is the contrast between super blasting things and then slow things. Or like, I'm going to jump ahead here in Dawn Patrol, which is just basically bass and like a spoken word thing. It's that contrast between songs, so the slow sections and the quieter sections, and then it comes blasting out of the speakers, super tight, super technical. That's what gives the album a good flow to it, and it makes the slow stuff makes the faster stuff sound all the heavier. The faster stuff makes the slow stuff sound all the heavier. And this album is just does that incredibly. Every song has its own kind of feel to it. You never feel like, oh, they're just playing fast for fast's sake, and it never just feels like sloppy stock thrash riffs. All these riffs have little quirky twists and turns to them, which are just incredible and really make them stand out above the pack of your typical thrash metal album. And that's why, in my opinion, this is one of the greatest thrash metal albums of all time. Take No Prisoners, a good example of this. It starts off with this drum and bass, like super fast, like and there's sort of this alternating guitar, and then the bass and the drums come in. And again, Dave Ellefson is just all over this record with his super fast picking, and his bass sound is just perfect. You can hear every note that he plays. And then when the riff kicks in with everybody, dominate them, terminate them, there's all these background vocals, which is just great. Something that they don't do a whole lot on the record, these sort of typical Anthrax style gang metal vocals. I really only think in Take No Prisoners. That's the only time where they bring that out. Five Magics is this really cool song with a whole bunch of different changing sections. It even has sections of the song that are in the time signature of 5/4, which means it has sort of this odd feel riff to it, but the melody line goes along with it. Hey, master, five magics. And it just flows really well. So even though when you sit down and as a musician, if you try to play this stuff, you're like, whoa, what is going on? There's all these syncopated twisting and turning riffs, but it makes sense in the song. It doesn't sound like just them just trying to be technical for technical's sake. It all works in the song. Poison Was the Cure is a cool, sort of short, fast one. Lucretia is another one of my favorites on this record. It's got this cool groove to it, and I love the part where it drops down to the da-da-da-da, da-da-da, down, down, da-da-da, down. It's just, it grooves. It has a really strong groove to it, and it just shows what this band was just so great and so many things that they could do. And again, the textures on this record, to jump back to the song Holy Wars, there's a spot where everything just stops and there's like a chime sound and there's this big acoustic guitar, Spanish sounding acoustic guitar thing in it. The guitar solos on all these songs are great. They're technical, but they're memorable too. They're just not somebody just throwing their fingers all over the neck for no reason. It just sounds great. And Marty Friedman, who's a highly technical guitar player, he doesn't let it distract from the songs. There's still a sense of melody in everything he does, which is just great. Tornado of Souls is another real popular one on this that they still play live, that has like a these guitar harmonic things in the beginning that are really cool, and again just chock full of awesome riffs. Dawn Patrol, which I mentioned earlier, is really cool. It's really all the bass in that. And Dave Mustaine has a couple spots in this song where he gets to have where the bass really jumps out, like Poison Was the Cure. He has a really cool bass part in that. And there's just a bunch of times where his bass, he's just not following the riff. He's doing creative little things to really add to the sound. Rust in Peace, Polaris, the final track on the album. Super cool, great way to take the record out. The song sort of ends and then it comes back in with this sort of coda section tagged on to the end of it. So all in all, what can you say? It's a fantastically produced album. It's a superbly played album from all the musicians involved. Everybody contributes to this. Nick Menz's drumming is incredible. The mix is incredible. The guitars sound great. All the songs are catchy and memorable. There's killer riffs all over it. It is just an incredible thrash metal masterpiece, in my opinion, and really up the game for where you could go with thrash metal. And for me, this was really the last really, really great Megadeth album, although I love the album that they put out after this. It had the classic Symphony of Destruction on it. But to me, they sort of started moving, Countdown to Extinction, they started moving in a little bit more of they toned down the thrashy elements, much akin to, again, this connection between Megadeth and Metallica. I think Metallica releases Injustice for All in '88. Megadeth answers that with Rust in Peace, and I think wins that card game, wins that bet. And then Metallica releases their Black album, and Megadeth, their response to that is Countdown to Extinction, which was their best-selling record. But to me, Rust in Peace is really their masterpiece. And then after Countdown to Extinction, in my opinion, they really sort of lost their way. And they did sort of come back later on, and they did release some good records, but they sort of lost their way after Countdown to Extinction, in my opinion. So there you go. Milestone moment, Megadeth, Rust in Peace, a thrash metal classic. Let me know in the comments what you think of this record. And make sure you hit subscribe and like. And until we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.